Hello, everyone. My name is Laura Rose, and I'm going over the issues of testing in Chapter 3, page 188, number 29 in the Survey of Mathematics. First, what is drug testing? A drug test looks for the presence of one or more illegal or prescription drugs in your urine, blood, saliva, hair, or sweat. Urine testing is the most common type of drug screening, most because it is more available to the consumer. The drug tests most often tested for include marijuana, opioids such as heroin, codeine, and oxycodone, morphine, hydrocodone, and fentanyl, amphetamines including methamphetamine, cocaine, steroids, as well as barbiturates such as phenobarbital and secobarbital phencytidine. Other names for drug tests include drug screen, drug test, drugs of abuse testing, substance abuse testing, toxology screen, tox screen, and of course, sports doping tests. So you may be wondering, what is the reason your community uses drug testing? Well, for example, if you want to get a job, your employer may test you before hiring and or after hiring to check in for your on-the-job drug use to make sure you are doing your job correctly. Sports organizations like professional and collegiate athletes usually need to take a test for performance-enhancing drugs or other substances to make sure they are not cheating. Legal or forensic purposes. Testing may be part of a criminal or motor vehicle accident investigation. Drug screening may also be ordered as part of a court case, especially if a person has a track record of using drugs. And also, monitoring opioid use. If you've been prescribed an opioid for chronic pain, your healthcare provider may order a drug test to make sure you are taking the right amount of your medication, mostly because opioids are extremely addictive, and when people get off of them, the withdrawal can be extremely hard for them. So why do you need to take a drug test? Well, the answer is actually quite simple. For your safety and others. When you are under the influence, you are not able to work at full capacity, and that puts you and your colleagues at risk, especially in a work environment that requires heavy equipment or motor skills. You would want others to think about your safety, so why not be safe for them too? It is very important for everyone to work together and stay safe because one day it could end someone's life. So now that we learned what drug testing is and why we should take drug tests, what is the legal side of taking a drug test? Well, first, drug testing laws are different depending on what state you live in. For example, in Oklahoma, apart from compliant applicant testing upon conditional offer of employment, authorized chemical tests for controlled substances include reasonable suspicion, post-accident, random testing, but random testing has restrictions to public employers for specific positions, but they are not restricted to private employers. As part of periodic fitness for duty medical examinations, same restrictions for public employers apply. And post-rehabilitation testing. The employer's drug or alcohol testing policy must be compliant with the provisions of the Standards for Workplace Drug and Alcohol Testings Act and must be communicated to employees and prospective employees through posting at prominent employee access areas, personally handling a copy of the policy through email or via email with document receipt capability. The employers shall pay for all costs of the drug or alcohol testings as required, including confirmation tests and transportation costs of the employee and the testing laboratory. Employees requested retest for the confirmed positives to be paid by the employee unless the results of the retesting come out negative. In such cases, the employee pays for the cost of the retest. The time allotted to the test is considered a compensationable work time. Collections of the samples may be performed on site, but only by qualified individuals as determined by the State Board of Health. Actual testing must be conducted at a licensed testing facilities only. An employer requiring or requesting an employee to undergo drug or alcohol testing must also provide an employee assistance program, either in-house or contracted, that provides that at the minimum substance dependency evaluation and referral services for counseling, treatment, and rehabilitation. An employer may only take
adverse employment action upon a confirmed positive test result. An employee's refusal to undergo compliant drug or alcohol testing is also a basis for disciplinary action for cases of refusal to test or a confirmed positive test. The employee is considered discharged for misconduct and may be entitled for benefits. All of these that I just listed is only for Oklahoma and could also be different in Alabama, Arkansas, and even Texas. So it's good to be aware of what your laws are and what you can do with drug testing. So now that we've gotten over the hard part about the laws on drug testing, let's talk about how accurate a drug test is. It is very hard to tell if a drug test is accurate or not because there are so many different kinds of drug tests. And some have better accuracy than others. When looking up online, it is told that blood and saliva tests usually have less error compared to a urine test that can be tampered with or can be messed with if a person decides to drink a bunch of water beforehand. Not only that, but a study shows that people with diabetes or people who have kidney infections will tend to fail a drug test with urine, which is another reason why certain drug tests are not always the best solution. So if you're an employer who really wants to get an accurate drug test, blood and saliva tests usually are the way to go. So here is a graph that shows how long drugs stay in your blood. Blood is probably one of the most accurate drug tests out there, in my own opinion. That's mostly because it can pick up on drugs that are still in a person even though they are showing no symptoms. Some of the examples that are in this graph is alcohol. Alcohol takes 12 hours or so to get out of a person's body, even though it may seem that a person has sobered up from 2 to 3 hours. Or how about cannabis? It takes 336 hours for it to be through with your body. So that is an insane amount. But some people may act like they are not high at all, which is a crazy thing. So it's important to know which drug tests are more accurate and what can pick up on these kind of things. So now that we've viewed the graph about blood drug testing, you may be wondering why employers don't use it more often. And the reason why is the cost of it. When you have a lot of employees, a certain amount of drug tests can make a bunch of debt for people. So how much does a test cost and why are they using the cheaper form? Well, urine is usually the least amount that it costs, mostly because it costs $7 to $50 per person. And then it comes from saliva, which is $15 to $75 per person. And then, of course, hair is around $100 to $150. But blood work tests can range from $100 to $3,000, making them one of the most expensive drug tests out there. So you may be wondering, why not just do the saliva? Well, when you do 75 compared to 50, it does add a lot. That 25 extra amount puts a lot of strain, especially on private employees who don't make that much money as it is. And since they aren't a commercial bound, it's really hard to, take those tests for people. So urine is kind of the only thing that a lot of people can get. So now that we are at the end of this PowerPoint, I wanted to put in why math is important in drug testing. My first point is to understand the accuracy of the test. Because there are so many different tests out there, it's important for people to know the numbers to see which test is more accurate for different employees. So it's very important for people to understand. The second point I put in is the number of people who are on drugs. Lots of people in cities actually use this to make sure that their communities are being safe because the number of people who are on drugs can actually determine whether or not they need certain help, such as facilities like rehabilitation areas or police use this to determine whether or not a certain area, like a neighborhood, is distributing a number of drugs. Another point is how long a person can be on a drug, even when there are no signs they are on the substance. So a lot of doctors actually use this point because when they do give out opioids, they are very addictive. So they use a certain percentage of a time that people have been on drugs versus when they've been off of the drug. That way they can kind of determine how long a person that they prescribe these opioids to, what is a safe area for these people to be on certain drugs. And other things too, like if a person's intoxicated, how long does it actually take for them to sober up enough to drive home, or how much is too much, basically. Another point is what is the percentage of certain drugs? Lots of studies are known for lots of different drugs such as cocaine and heroin, and the percentage of certain drugs and what is higher or what is not. Basically, how high can you get off of cocaine versus how high you can get off of marijuana. Those are different types of highs. So math is very important for testing. And it's also very important for our community to know all these numbers, because when a community is under trouble with drugs, it causes a lot of problems, and it actually can cause a lot of poverty. Drugs are a gateway to a community almost going under. And these numbers are actually what a lot of people use to keep the community safe from doing that. Drugs are always going to be a thing. They always were a thing way back in the day. And drug testing is one way that we are actually cleaning up this situation. So I hope this PowerPoint really helped you. I hope that you've learned a lot from this PowerPoint. And I want to thank you all for listening. And here are the resources that I found. Thank you so much. And I hope you guys have a wonderful day.